Without further ado, put your hands together and let's welcome Miss Keesa Schreane.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you, Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy Board, students, parents and family, Dr. Wells and Dr. Swafford, as well as our principal and assistant principal, guests, and especially the amazing, gorgeous graduates. Congratulations to the class of 2023. Congrats to you. I am thrilled to be here with you in my hometown, the land that we call our Rock Rising, as our Native American ancestors refer to this land, the land that we call Chattanooga. I want to give a special thanks to my family, my father, my mom, happy early Mother's Day, Mom, and my best friend, who happens to be my little sister, Tiffany. Thank you so much for being my rock. Like many of our graduates here today, I am an avid reader, and I owe a lot of this passion to my dear friend and mentor and my former 8th grade teacher, Dr. Etna Varner. And I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Varner, who taught me about mythology and so much more during this Teacher's Appreciation Week. Thank you so much for everything, Etna. Well, after that first entree into reading, I've honestly been hooked ever since. It's like the more I read, the more questions I have about things, and the more I listen and learn, the more questions I have. And questions come about like, how can I ensure my peers and my colleagues and myself focus on self-care, health, mental health, physical health, so we can show up with the intention of leading, inspiring, and respecting our colleagues and classmates and teammates and friends. And in my professional world, because of all these questions and reading, I think of questions like, how can I help people in my community build wealth, create businesses, and really invest capital despite policies and institutions that try to hold us back historically for so many years? And with these questions, I began my journey into curiosity. And that curiosity has certainly served me well. And as you move into the next stage of your journey, your college or university, your next volunteer role, your next sports team, your next workplace, my wish for each of you is to stay curious. Stay curious. Now, when you stay curious, it definitely puts you in company of fantastic people. Think about, for example, Rihanna, who didn't stop at being a mere pop icon. She went further. She saw a market need. She saw women who wanted intimate wear in a variety of sizes. She also saw that many intimate wear companies were either unable or unwilling to provide this, and so she jumped on the opportunity. She was curious about how to position a brand, makeup, clothing, women's wear. She asked questions, and she found out that women weren't getting what they wanted, and she created her company. She asked questions. She got answers. She built an empire. And it's all because she stayed curious. Or we could think of another example and throw it back a few decades and talk about Brownie Wise. Now, I don't know how many of you in the audience know what Tupperware is, but Brownie Wise was actually a VP at Tupperware back in the 1950s when there weren't a lot of women VPs of anything. She was also the first woman on the cover of Business Week. And the thing about Brownie Wise is that she created a new way of doing business. Earl Tupper was the creator of Tupperware, which is basically a food storage system. Put food in it, put it in the refrigerator. He created Tupperware, but he couldn't sell Tupperware. He had no idea what he was doing. He could not get these food storage containers into grocery stores, into other stores. So he hired Brownie, and she was curious about how could she get her customers and her employees hype about Tupperware? She asked them. She thought about ways to include them, and she created what we know now as the Tupperware Party. How many people, go ahead, let's raise our hands, know about the Tupperware Party? Okay, proud of it. That's right, be proud. The Tupperware Party was her creation. We don't just have to sell things, but we can have fun while we do it. She revolutionized the way that we did marketing. And she took her company to reach $25 million in sales in the 1950s, which is about $250 million in today's dollars. She asked questions. She got answers, and she stayed curious. We could also think about women in our political realm. You see, Sharice Davids, who is a congresswoman, a representative from Kansas, she started off as being a mixed martial artist. But she decided that she really wanted to work for her people, an indigenous community. And she asked questions around, how can I improve their economic standing? What can I do to make sure that they can generate wealth? So from learning how to literally pick herself up from being knocked out, to questioning how she could support her community, she thought about ways to really influence and to generate wealth. Her evolution in her career, the shift in her focus, it happened because she stayed curious. Now, all these women who we talk about, they all sat where you're sitting today. You see, you are in such a beautiful place, and it's because at this point, as your senior said, you have so much mastery already. You've mastered arts and sciences and language and English. But you know, the really, really wonderful part is this. Even though you've already mastered so much, you have so much more learning left to do. We all do. All of us have so much more learning left to do. And it's interesting that when we do this learning, what comes from it? And one last thing. When we remain curious, when we challenge our assumptions, when we hammer out hypotheses, when we test our theories, the discipline and focus, and yes, the mastery that comes from remaining curious, it helps us build confidence. Think about it. Think about Beyonce, who put in thousands of hours rehearsing, testing new choreography, asking, how can I write this, sing that, express myself to take myself to the highest level that I can. Those self-challenges and tests, the experiments and the grueling hours of practice, all to identify how she can put her best art forward, that's the kind of confidence that we all saw in Homecoming and in Renaissance. Or think about Jasmine Carson. She was absolute fire. Did we see the NCAA tournament? Absolute fire in the first half of the NCAA, leading her LSU team. Yeah, that's right, woo for Jasmine. She made all 5 of her three-point shots, and I was right there. I saw it. She was fire. Made all 5 of those shots, including a bank shot at the halftime buzzer. Now, Jasmine attributes that to hard work and steady practice, discovering the best technique, identifying the right headspace to be in as soon as you hit that court, practicing the same shots over and over and over again, just to ask yourself at the end of the day, how can I get any better than this? That's what creates the confidence that we saw when she led her team with 22 points. In closing, you have such a magnificent, beautiful journey ahead of you. And it is my hope that you stay flexible, that you stay excited, that you stay secure, that you stay helpful to others, that you stay confident, that you stay true to yourself, compassionate, and importantly, that you stay curious. Congratulations to the class of 2023, and thank you.